Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Ronsley, and today we're going to talk about creating unique images using MidJourney. You must have seen this around the internet, some amazing photorealistic images, and some images that are just so out of this imagination that you can only think about when you were a little child, and you can take that, put your imagination into a prompt, and make images into a reality. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. We're going to go through some really cool principles, but then we're going to break down how I would use MidJourney, and you're going to see my screen where I share the prompt and the images that we get from those prompts. So come on, let's learn. Hey, it's Ronsley. Welcome, you AI geek, to this podcast, my AI love affair. Consider this podcast your digital compass, guiding you through the labyrinth that is business growth using artificial intelligence. Running a business as a creative can sometimes be like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. But what if you had a secret tool that could align all the colors for you? That is AI. It's like a master key unlocking multiple doors. Thanks for being here. Let's learn. Now, today is a growth stack, and in all growth stacks, there are certain ways that I like to structure my episodes so that we get and use artificial intelligence with empathy based on some really solid business principles. When you're creating unique images, especially for your brand, there are some principles I'd love for you to think about. The first one being know your brand. What does it look like? What are your brand personalities? What are its values? And if you don't already have a brand guideline, go and get a brand guidelines done. And you can do that again at maybe the speed of intelligence these days, because you can actually get GPT to create your whole brand. And maybe I do another growth tactic on that topic. But the first principle is, what's your brand's personality? What are your brand's values? And imagine what it would look like, what it would feel like, and what it would sound like. Make sure you know what your colors, your logos, and your fonts are, and your sounds are, and some of the soundscapes that you might use, even if you have a podcast or a YouTube channel. What are certain things that when you hear, you're reminded of your brand? That's principle number one. Principle number two is to focus on the audience, making sure that what you're creating resonates with your people. Does it engage them? How does it engage them? How would you stop the scroll? Like when they are going through wherever they find these images that you're putting out, like make sure that you're like the DJ that plays for your people. You want to be the one that guides them through this night, and you want to be able to create an experience. So focus on the audience. What will make them stop the scroll? Second principle. The third one is about experimentation, because it's not like a one size fits all, and understanding that this is new, understanding and seeing what resonates with your audience, what makes them send you messages back. Like I get a lot of messages from certain types of images that I have been creating recently, and I like to double down on those kind of images because it creates imagination. So take feedback seriously, and also understand the route, or the different route, depending on where you are, the journey that your customer takes, and how you can use imagery to make those journeys for your customers a lot more useful, a lot more amazing. And the reason this is such an important topic is because, there used to be a time that if I wanted to create a photo, like if I wanted to create an image of a businesswoman in Dubai, I would have to go and fly a businesswoman model, a photographer, and get permission to shoot a photo shoot in Dubai to be able to get that image. Now I can imagine that and get it very photorealistically using MidJourney. And that's why it's so important to understand and learn how this is done. So a couple of mistakes I want you to avoid. The first one being uniformity. Like make sure that when you're creating something, you are making and trying different things. And once you get your thing, then you can start creating it in the style of your brand. So make sure it's reflecting your brand. Don't just forget to like remember that you're creating the images for your audience as well. So you don't create something that actually resonates with them. And the other thing with learning something new, especially learning how to create images in MidJourney, don't be inconsistent with it. Play with it, understand how it works, how different prompts work. You could create the same prompt and give it again and again, and you might get different results depending on how the machine actually imagines it in this new time. So be consistent with what you're doing. Here are 3 steps to get it done correctly. First is, what's your brand's language? Then we want to create the images based on that. And then finally, test and refine. So with step 1 and understanding your brand's languages and how you want it to appear to your audience, I spoke initially about the principles of look, feel, and sound. How do you want your brand to look, feel, and sound? But if you break that down, you just kind of decide, what are your colors? Like, what is your main color and what is your secondary color? What are the shapes that your brand represents? Do you have an arrow that's part of your brand, or do you have boxes that are rounded edges versus square, sharp edges? So outline what your colors and shapes are. Outline what types of images your brand represents. Are they powerful images? Are they images that denote calm? Are they images that create inspiration? What does your brand represent? And what kind of images represents that part of your brand? So look for those parts when you're deciding what kind of brand language your brand represents. And again, who's it for and for what are you trying to achieve with your brand, making sure that that sits and it reinforces your business brand rather than just creating an AI image that, might just be cool. We want to make it useful. So that's step 1. Step 2 is creating the images. So learn prompts that work, and I will show you some of the prompts that I've used and worked on, and you can copy and paste them. Also get into the Discord server because you can see my prompt or my MidJourney prompts. And if you're level 2, you can see all my MidJourney prompts. Anything that I create, you have open access to. So you can copy and paste either the images or the actual prompts. But step 2 is creating the images, learning what prompts work, using the zoom and pan and how they can create really cool images, and also how to upscale images once you make them in artificial intelligence. So once you make them in MidJourney, you want to take that image and upscale it so that it's useful, like it's the highest quality that you can create, and you have upscalers that are available to do that. That's step 2. Step 3 is about refining and testing. And in here, I want you to think about like what sizes are your images meant to be generated in? Like what kind of version in MidJourney are you using? You can use version 4, you can use version 5, 5.1, 5.2, which is the latest version. And they're going to keep improving the algorithm. And a lot of things change when you're creating them, depending on which version of MidJourney you're using. Looking at using custom zoom, which is really powerful, and you can create a really cool video. If you haven't followed me on any of the socials, you will see that in Instagram as well, on Facebook maybe, and maybe even on LinkedIn if I'm correct. But it's a zooming effect that you can create a really nice video image that is out of this world, and probably it's so unique and custom to your brand, especially if you follow these steps. And finally, change perspectives and image types. That is another part of testing and refining. So I'm going to give you some prompts that you can use, especially within ChatGPT. So first is like, if this is my audience type, what kind of images would appeal to them? Asking and doing that kind of research is super powerful and super helpful. The other thing you can do is, this is what I do. This is who I am as a brand. This is who I am as a business. Build my brand. Can you ask me relevant questions that would allow you to get the best idea of what my business does? And can I create a brand around that? The third prompt I'd want you to think about is, you can actually put into ChatGPT and say, create me a MidJourney prompt that does this, or imagines a business person sitting on a sidewalk thinking about their next move, whatever that looks like. So you can actually ask ChatGPT to create a MidJourney prompt that will make it useful. But let me share my screen right now and show you how we can do this really effectively using MidJourney. All right, we're here in the AI Geeks Discord server. And when you join, you'll be part of the AI Geeks level 1. You'll have access to all these cool channels, including prompts to try and the latest AI news, all the stuff from, our podcasts. Well, you find that here, any discussions, some of the lessons when we talk about plugins. But when you're level 2, you get these 30 level 2 lessons, which are actually how to do certain things like delegate this part of your business to artificial intelligence. And if you're part of level 2 and you bought that course, then you get access to my AI Geeks MidJourney, which is basically all my prompts. But I'm just going to show you a couple of things. And one of the things that I want to layer here that I feel you'd get most use out of is that you can use emoticons in your prompt. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm just copying it from a spot I have here. So what I'm saying is, imagine a microscopic view of a computer, or at least that's my imagination of what I'm saying. And I'm using these emoticons to represent my prompt. And I'm saying I want an aspect ratio of 16:9. I also want a chaos level of 75, which is I want it to be a bit random in how it's generating it. And I will leave it at that and see what it does. While it's generating this, I want to show you some of the previous prompts I've created. Now, here's a really interesting one. I did a photorealistic portrait of a podcaster with a focus on their piercing gaze and distinctive focus. Use the multi-prompt podcaster photorealistic studio with a prompt weighting of podcaster to emphasize the subject. So I wanted them to emphasize the subject. I don't really think it used this really well, and maybe I could just get away with the first part. Then I asked it for an aspect ratio of 16:9 and a chaos level of 77 with the this is kind of standard with the seeding, and I'd leave it at 250. So when I'm changing the chaos, and you see the chaos in here, as in this image is different from this one, is different from this one, is different from this one, very, very different images. And if I reduce the chaos, they would kind of be similar. Anyway, I really like this one, so I upscaled that one here, and it looks so fantastic. But then what I asked it to do is vary this image, and quite strongly vary this image. And it came up with these options, which also really cool. Like I love the subject, right? The subject is amazing. And I would love to like go deeper on that. But this is fascinating. I put microscope and that, and nothing that I imagined what I thought it would come out came out here. But let me do that again. And instead of doing 2 emoticons, what I'm going to do is microscope view of computer, and let's see what that does. I'm going to show you some other prompts that I thought were really interesting. A close-up portrait of a lioness captured by a wildlife photographer, and you can a certain type of photographer, and there are particular ways of creating their images. And I'm specifying some of the lens that's being used and how it's being clicked to actually focus on the subject. And I'm also trying to give it some emotional context and where is the actual shot being taken. And this could be any sort of idea that you put out, but this is the one for a lioness, which is really cool. I like this one. I upscaled this one, and I thought this was very cool. But then I also asked it to do a similar sort of prompt for a jackal, and I got that, which again, wow. Anyway, this is about very specifically, right? I'm asking for a close-up photo, but here I'm asking for a podcaster, and it gave me these options. I thought this was quite photorealistic when it did that. Accomplished woman. But then here are some of the other things that I've done, which I won't get into, but I just want to show you the last one that we did here, and hoping to wait for it to start. And while this is generating, come join us in this AI Geeks community. There's a lot of useful things that you'll find in here. And once you're part of the crew, you can ask a whole bunch of questions in here. My plan is to do some office hours, probably once a month or something like that, to help out the community, show you what I'm learning and what is useful that can be applied to business, and especially creative business owners. But have a look at this, a microscopic view of a computer board. and it's done this like mind-blowing images. If you think about it, I would upscale them all, but for the time being, I'm upscaling these. Anyway, I'll check you out on another episode. I hope you are enjoying these, and as always, love what you do what you love.
Hey, AI Geek, thanks for listening. Your job doesn't stop here. I want you to lend your voice to the conversation. So you can join those conversations, discussions, new trainings, new recordings, and the rest of the AI Geeks by going to aigeeks.co/Discord. Also, share this podcast with a friend, another potential AI Geek. Until then, much love.